What would you do if you saw a terrifying dwarf standing at the end of a pitch-black hallway? Would you think Santa had come early and maybe it was an elf, or a demonic entity there to cause you pain? And then we take a look at the story of a man who has faced many warnings about his criminal past, yet decides to continue his crime spree. Little does he realize he's about to be hit with a punishment so insane, many, including him, believed it was only an urban legend. Today on Dead Rabbit Radio. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Dead Rabbit Radio. I'm your host, Jason Carpenter. I'm having a great day. Hope you guys are having a great day too. Hope you guys are having tons of fun doing whatever you're doing. We got a jammed pack episode, so let's go ahead and get this party started. First off, running into Dead Rabbit Radio Command. Everyone get on your feet and give it up for Mr. Slash for Sass. Yeah, we. Girl, what? Why are you making that weird noise? Well, listen, this was off the note I have of people who made a donation during our Dead Rabbit Radio Thanksgiving live stream. And I'll be honest, some of the names I might have written down wrong. I don't know. They don't really make sense. So I don't know if this guy that's his real name. Mr. Slash for Sass, which is actually would be a pretty dope screen name, but it might just be Mr. Slash, and everything else after it, I just wrote down in some sort of weird conniption fit. But whatever the case, Mr. Slash for Sass, thank you so much for your donation. That is why you are the captain, the pilot of this episode. If you guys can't support the show financially through the Patreon or through the merch store or through live streams, I totally understand. I really do. Just help spread the word about Dead Rabbit Radio. That helps out so much. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell everyone you know. Dead Rabbit Radio is your favorite paranormal show. That is how you can help the show grow. Also, quick bit of news. This weekend, December 19th, is our Dead Rabbit Radio movie night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is for our Patreon members, but you can be a paid or a free Patreon member to join. What we do is we watch about 2 hours worth of short films, and it's always a blast. I love doing it. I haven't seen most of these films, really, generally none of them, so we all get to experience them for the first time. And I love horror films, I love short films, so I really hope you guys can make it. December 19th at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is the Dead Rabbit Radio movie night. The next morning, we're going to have the Dead Rabbit Radio movie morning for our international listeners, because a lot of people, they can't make that nighttime. And the movie morning will start at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that is going to be available to everybody. We did that the last one. We're going to do it this one. As long as everything seems to go in order, we'll keep doing that. I like having one open for everyone. Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for the Dead Rabbit Radio movie morning. So I hope to see any of you there. If you guys can make it, that would be awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and get this party started. Mr. Slash Force. He's like, that's not my name. Quit putting in scribbles on your paperwork. That's my name. I'm Mr. Slash. Dr. Slash, actually. Mr. Slash, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the bunny bicycle. Everyone climb on board this beautiful bike as Mr. Slash pedals us out of Dead Rabbit Radio Command all the way out to California. Inca, Inca, Inca. Inca, Inca, Inca. Inca, Inca, Inca. We're headed all the way out to California. Specifically, we're headed to San Jose, California, and there we are about to meet a young girl. We don't have a real name. Let's call her Felicia. She's 6 years old. We're headed all the way out to California. Specifically, we're headed to San Jose, California. And then we're going to meet a young girl. We don't have a real name. We're going to call her Felicia. She's 6 years old. So we walk inside. It's early evening, and her family has gathered together for dinner. So we have Felicia sitting in a chair. I don't know if a 6-year-old has to use a booster seat to eat dinner. And also sitting at this dinner table is mom and dad. No word on whether or not they need booster seats either. They're just sitting there eating dinner, and we're kind of like walking into their kitchen. And we see dad goes, "Oh, pew-wee, what's that smell?" And mom's sitting there and she's eating her food, and she goes, "I didn't want to bring it up, honey, but it smells like rotting garbage in the house again." He's like, "But I just took the garbage out yesterday." Man. And so he gets up and he's looking around. He's trying to find the scent of decaying trash. That actually doesn't sound as gross as rotting garbage. Rotting garbage sounds worse than decaying trash. But anyways, he's like, what's that horrible smell? He's looking all over the kitchen. He can't find the source of the smell. He begins looking around the house. Honey, come back and eat your macaroni and cheese. I will. I gotta figure out what this smell is. He's walking around the house. This home has been plagued off and on with the smell of rotting trash. It just wafts through their small suburban home. And while Dad is slowly losing his mind because he can't figure out the source of it, no matter how often he takes out the garbage, Felicia's sitting there at the dinner table, silently eating her macaroni and cheese because she knows what the smell is. She knows where it's coming from. And she knows who is responsible. But she doesn't say anything. She just continues eating her mac and cheese. It's disgusting. This is making lip noises. Are you dehydrated? Yes. Like usual, I'm dehydrated. Bad smells. It's funny because it's something that we can all intrinsically place. When you smell it, you can go, that smells like a dead animal. There's a dead animal somewhere in this house. And then you walk into the next room, you have a very unhealthy house. You walk into the next room and you're like, oh, pewee. That smells like banana peels that have been left out in the sun for a week. You walk into the next room, you go, somebody took a dump in here. It's the bathroom. They're like, Dad, get out. I'm going to the bathroom right now. He's all picking the lock. Gotta figure out what this room smells like. It's really interesting because I think it's a human thing. We encounter so many smells, both good and bad. We've become almost experts at figuring out what a smell is. But it's really hard. When you read a story about bad smells, it's really hard, I think, for us to imagine them. If you smelled it yourself, you know exactly what it is. But when I say rotting garbage, you're like, oh, okay, you just kind of hear those words. I remember a long time ago, I watched this movie. I don't remember the name of it. It was called like Fart Face or Anus Mouth. I think it was Stankmouth was the name of the movie. It was a super low budget horror movie about a man who was born with an anus for a mouth. And he just had his cheeks were butt cheeks, and he had a butthole for a mouth, and every time he talked, he farted, and there was poop constantly coming out of his mouth. I accidentally watched it twice. I watched it once, and I go, what is this movie? And then years later, I go, wow, what's this movie? Stankmouth, The Legend of Buttface, or whatever it was. And I watched it again, and as I was watching it, I go, this seems familiar. How many movies, Jason, do you watch with people who have buttholes for mouths that you can get them confused? You're like, oh, I wonder if this one was the one from 1992 or the 2007 remake. No, I was watching the movie and I was like, this seems oddly familiar, but I didn't know that I'd watched it before. And most of the movie is these characters walking around a house that I'm assuming the filmmakers rented for the weekend. And the walls were kind of smeared with a brown substance, and Stankmouth was hiding in the shadows. It was like a slasher film. And every scene kind of played out the same. A group of characters would walk into a room and go, pew-wee, it sure does smell in here. And you're like, there's obviously poop on the walls, detectives. I'm sure that you'll crack this next case of what the smell is in the other room as well. But most of the movie is characters are going, pew-wee, it stinks in here. And I'm watching it, and I was like, yeah, it probably would smell really bad. There's a man with a butthole for a mouth. They don't know that yet. And then this one character shows up, and he walks in. I'm sure this was improv, because no other character in the movie said anything even remotely this descriptive. Most of it was just like, ew, stinky. This rich, kind of yuppie-ish character walks into a room, and he goes, dude, it smells like a fart threw up. And that throw-up took a dump. And I was like, oh, okay. Now that's pretty descriptive. Now I can start to place the smell. And then later on in the movie, the same character walks into a room. This literally was the whole movie. Them walking into different rooms and talking about how stinky each room was. And then they'd show Stankmouth hiding in the corner. Later on in the movie, that same character, the rich yuppie, walks into a room and goes, it smells like a dead hooker's queef. That's a little too descriptive. That's disgusting. The last time I saw the movie, I did see it twice. The last time I saw the movie had to have been like 4 or 5 years ago. And I still remember those lines. I don't remember why. I think I was just so amazed when I saw it for the first time, or just befuddled. Those lines didn't stick out to me, but when I saw it the second time, I felt them stamped into my brain. I go, that's probably the most disgusting and descriptive ways to ever translate the feeling to the audience, this room stinks. Because it would, right? Both of those are so especially the second one. You're like, oh, I got the point with the first one, Jason. You didn't have to say the second one. Well, that's how I felt when he said that. I go, oh, disgusting. That's the worst possible way you can describe a bad smell. Both bad in taste. It's a bad taste joke, but also it's just so vivid. And the reason why I'm telling you all that stuff, and the reason why I'm giving a Dead Rabbit Radio recommends the Stankmouth, the reason why I'm telling you that, both stories we're going to talk about today involve very strong smells, and it is difficult to kind of describe those things without saying stuff like rotting garbage or the smell that's going to happen in the next story. It's even worse, but I've always had personally a very strong sense of smell. I've said this before on the show. When I'm really stressed out, and this is quite common, this happens to a lot of people, they don't realize it. I had to do some research on it because I was kind of worrisome to me. When I'm really, really, really stressed out, I'll start to hallucinate smells. Bad smells. Raw sewage, rotting garbage, stuff like that. And then that's when I know, I've learned over the years, okay, you're really hitting your limit and your body's actually making you hallucinate smells. You need to chill. That's actually the most common hallucination people have, is hallucinating smells. Not a lot of people know that. You might struggle with that as well. So I've always had a pretty strong sense of smell my entire life. As I started chewing tobacco, nicotine, especially chewing tobacco, affects your sense of smell. It dulls it a bit. So it's not as strong as it used to be. I don't have the same sense of smell that I used to. COVID also took a little bit off. When I was younger, I used to be able to smell. This is people, women in particular, always found this very disturbing. And I go, well, I can't control it. I mean, I guess I probably could have not told you about it, and then it wouldn't have been an issue. But when I was a kid, I'd smell it, and I would smell it pretty much constantly, depending on where I was at. I don't really do it that much. I can't do it that much anymore. It wasn't anything I could control, but I used to, because my sense of smell is more dull now, but I used to be able to smell when a woman was on her period. I didn't know what the smell was when I was a kid. I had no sense of context. And as I got older, I started thinking, I go, when I heard about women having periods and all that stuff, I go, well, could that be what I'm smelling? Because it was never all the time. Like if I went to a Ross Dress for Less with my mom as a kid, I could pick up on the smell. Or if I went to go see the Vagina Monologue or something like that. Now with Smell-O-Vision, they're wafting it into the theater. Usually, when I would go to a department store, I would smell it. That wasn't just the joke that Ross Dress for Less, places like that, Macy's. You'd be walking through and I would smell it. And I didn't know what the smell was. And then I finally, when I was in college, I asked a good friend of mine, I go, hey, I got a question. I keep smelling this smell, and I think it might be women on their periods. And she goes, what? And I go, yeah, I don't know if that's true, but maybe you could help me figure it out. Maybe, are you on your period right now? Can you let me know? Because I smell something. And she goes, she didn't believe me. She goes, what does it smell like? And I go, well, it's kind of hard to place. But the most approximate scent I could compare it to would be wet pennies with a soupy kind of scent underneath it. Like wet pennies with a tomato soup accent. And she looked at me and she goes, God damn it. She goes, that's what you're smelling. Now, I don't know if women smell it. I don't know if women can smell each other. I know bears can. But she goes, yeah, that's probably what you're smelling. The wet pennies is the iron oxide. And it was never super overpowering, but it was an odd enough smell, and it would just pop up in certain places that I questioned it. I can't really do that anymore. Again, I wasn't disgusted when I was able to do it. I didn't know what it was for most of it, and now I can't really do it. Every so often, I'll catch a whiff of it, but I saw a strong sense of smell for me. What does any of this stuff have to do with a 6-year-old and whatever story you're going to tell us? You're like, oh man, you're sitting there eating tomato soup organizing your penny collection. This show's so disgusting. Well, the reason why it has to do with what we're about to talk about is because Felicia does know the origin of this scent of rotting flesh. It comes from the little man in the hallway. Felicia tells us this. She posted this story online as an adult. And she goes, when we lived in San Jose, the way that the house was laid out, the hallway was kind of in a T shape. So, like the letter T, not the drink. It's not constantly fluid. You're like, it's like House of Leaves. Every page, something changes. No, it's a long hallway that splits off on two ends, much like the letter T. She said the way that it would work was that before she went to bed, she would have to go into the bathroom and brush her teeth before going to bed, which I've never done that. I've never done that at all. I think it's kind of weird, but I know they recommend it. I know dentists really think that you should do it, but whatever. Well, here's the thing. You may do it, but maybe you shouldn't, because this might happen to you, and you might live in San Jose, and then it's definitely going to happen to you. She goes, I'd have to brush my teeth before going to bed, and the light switch for the hallway was at the end of the hall. So she would have to walk down a dark hallway, turn the light on, brush her teeth, and then shut the light off and walk through the dark hallway once more to her bedroom, which would be scary, sure. But the problem was that in this house, there was an unwanted visitor who brought with him the smell of rotting garbage. This was the source of the smell. Now, she says every single night I had to deal with this. Every single night he was there. But the rest of the family only smelled rotting garbage every once in a while. So it's kind of an interesting tidbit. Why did she smell it every night, but the rest of the family didn't? It's not just that the guy smells like garbage. That would be bad enough. That's about as bad as you can get. According to that one guy from, what was the name of that movie? I already forgot. Stankmouth? But, it wasn't just that he smelled like garbage. That would be annoying. That's an annoying little imp. And little imp would be the best way to describe this guy. It would just be annoying if that's all he did. But this is how it would happen every night. She'd be walking down the hallway, and right underneath the light switch, he'd be standing there. He's only about 3 feet tall. And he was wearing old, dirty clothing, much like a farmer would wear. Not saying all farmers are filthy, but you know what I mean? Like the style of clothing. She said it looked like he was wearing dirty, old-timey farmer clothing and had a raggedy old straw hat. And he would stand underneath the light switch. She'd have to walk towards him in the dark to turn on the light. And when she would turn on the light, he would vanish. So she'd brush her teeth, but she knows when she's done brushing, she's going to have to shut the light off and run down the hallway as fast as possible. Because she was afraid, this is a valid fear, that if she dilly-dallied too long in a pitch-black hallway, not pitch black, it's a house, it's not the void, but, you walk down a dark hallway, we already have that natural fear, I do, and I know many other people do, walking down a dark hallway late at night. Or walking up the stairs, you're leaving behind a dark living room and you're walking up the stairs. You always get that feeling something's chasing you. Well, she had there was definitely something there. And what's interesting is you can chalk it up to a childhood imagination, but every so often the other people in the house would go, what's that horrible smell? And Felicia knew what it was. It was the old, dirty farmer man, 3 feet tall, standing underneath the light switch like he always did. She knew exactly where this was coming from. She said, what made this all more grotesque, right? We already have a dwarf dressed in dirty clothing, smelling like rotting garbage. He can vanish when the lights turn on, so it's definitely supernatural. She said that she never saw the front of him. She only ever saw his back. But he was always watching her when she was in the hallway, and the reason why was because his head was turned 180 degrees. So his head was looking backwards or forwards from his point of view, but his stomach is facing backwards because it's pointed towards the wall. But his back is pointed forwards. You're drawing a diagram, you're like, oh, okay. Jason's trying to describe something spatial again. His belly button is facing the opposite direction of his nose, if that clears it up for you. She goes, he would just stand there with his head twisted around, smiling. Of course, it's always a creepy smile watching her. And she says, I got a real close look at this guy because he's right underneath the light switch. But I still never saw the front of him. She said this lasted for quite a while. It was something that continuously happened in this house. But she doesn't make reference to it happening nowadays. It was just a trash-smelling dwarf in this house. The big question is, what is this? What is this phenomenon? We don't know. You go, well, Jason, you say phenomenon, it's just one story. No, they're actually, around the world, there are stories of little people who live alongside humans who are there to cause trouble, mischievous at best, evil at worst. And what's interesting, too, about this, and I'm going to talk more about this week. We're doing Tiny Tim Week, right? We're talking about different stories about dwarves and gnomes or whatever the world that thing was that we just talked about. We still do it. It's no longer just a legend of a short being. I mean, it stepped out of the world of folklore and into the world of science. Because what is the number one boogeyman of someone, if you didn't believe in ghosts, if you didn't believe in shadowy entities standing at the end of the hallway with their head on backwards and the smell of rotting garbage, if you didn't believe in any of that stuff, what is a scientifically approved boogeyman? A boogeyman that is nowadays spoken about in Congress. The gray alien. And the gray alien is more socially acceptable than talking about, I think my house is haunted by a dwarf with his head on wrong. What are the physical characteristics of a gray alien? Just the straight up ones that if any of these were missing, something's off about the story. 1, they're gray. 2, big heads with big eyes. 3, they're short. So again, is this something that our psyche, that we are having this collective psychosis, really? And it doesn't matter where we are at on the cultural evolutionary timeline, we will always create a boogeyman that is shorter than us, that is existing out of our society, but every so often sticks its head in and messes with us. Or are they real? We're going to talk more about it this week, and we're going to try to figure that out. Is it a cultural thing? Are these creatures real? And if they're real, why do the more menacing ones tend to be short? If you think about it, there is only one commonly accepted creature in the pantheon of all of these stories that is bigger than us. And that's Bigfoot. Every other story, for the most part, that, like the stereotypical ghost story, they're the same size as they were when they were alive. Most cryptids are shorter than humans. Outside of a thing like a Mongolian death worm, a dogman, a reptilian alien. I guess the Nordic aliens are taller than us, too. But a lot of the cryptids that people face... Actually, no, now that I think about it, the cryptids, I think about the crawlers. They're quite big. I mean, again, we're just all kind of exploring this subject together. I'm not the end-all, be-all in these theories, but I do think there's something about the shortness, the stature, that actually is a big component as to why they spread across cultures. And now I'm thinking, of course, Walking Sam. He's taller than humans. The Shadow Man, they're taller than humans. So maybe I only have my theory half on. But again, what was this thing? I think it'll be a fun week looking at a couple of these different stories. They're all different from different people, different places in the world. Talking about these short guys and why they seem to be so menacing. This one definitely, if I had to take a guess on this one, this was a demon. And it targeted Felicia because of the fear. She was giving it, the small man at the end of the hallway was doing two things. It was instilling a sense of fear in Felicia, and it was instilling a sense of powerlessness. in Felicia. Because she knew she could not tell anyone what she was experiencing. Because what she was experiencing, no one would believe her. And that's that feeling of you have no power. There's nothing you can do to stop me. I can appear to you every single night and no one will believe you. This is the world you live in. And the scent, making the scent available for the other people to smell, I think was also a sense of power. Go ahead, Felicia, tell them. You know exactly what's causing the smell. No one will believe you. Not only will they not believe you, they'll think you're nuts. And guess what? I'm going to be here later tonight anyways. You're sitting at the dinner table eating the macaroni and cheese. You can tell them exactly what you've seen. They're not going to believe you. I'll see you in a couple hours. I'll be standing at the end of the hallway. You have no power. You only have fear. I've given you the knowledge of what I am and what I can do. And yet, there's nothing you can do to stop me. And that sounds very demonic. The scent as well sounds very demonic. But we'll be talking a bit about this for the rest of the week as well. Mr. Slash for Sass, I'm going to go ahead and toss you the keys of the world famous Carpenter Copter. We're leaving behind San Jose. Why don't you fly us all the way out to an Eastern European city? We get out there, and I have you land at a police station. In the police station somewhere in Eastern Europe. We see the cops walking around and filling out paperwork, drinking coffee and stuff like that. The police captain comes in and he goes, "Hey boys, I know you guys had a fishing trip planned for this weekend, but you're going to have to cancel it." And they're like, "Aw, chief, seriously?" He goes, yeah, you know crime waits for no one. And we have a batch of criminals we have to take care of this week. And now the cops are getting a little nervous and they're like, "Well, why don't we just put them in jail? Like, we can do that on a Friday and we can still go fishing." And the chief kind of shakes his head and he goes, No, I wish it was that simple. And now the police are getting real nervous because they kind of know what's coming. One of the officers goes, "Chief, you don't mean..." The chief reaches under his desk. Like, wait, I thought he just walked into the room. He brings his whole desk with him. It's all screeching across the floor. He did. He pushed his whole desk over, then he reaches under his desk and he pulls out a bucket and has a lid on it and sets the bucket down. And he goes, "Guys, I know you guys had big plans fishing. You thought you were going to catch the big one this week, but criminals are going to catch the big one this time." And he takes the lid off of the bucket. And all the men in the room start retching. There's 30 men in the room. I have to do the sound effect 27 more times. Because what they're smelling is the punishment that this group of criminals is going to face. The punishment known as mucking. Now, you may know the story I'm about to tell. And I'll know that you know, because I'll see my listener retention stat drop 30%. 1 out of 3 of you are like, "Nah, I'm good, dude. I don't need to hear." However, Jason is going to present this disgusting story. Some of you guys might be familiar with it. I wasn't. I found out about this a couple weeks ago. There are people who say that this is fake. That no law enforcement agency would ever do this. And they've never heard of this story before. It was told by 2 different people. They said it's all fake. In fact, some people claim the story I'm about to tell you is simply the fetish of some sicko out there. Now, I know that I do have history of going into detail about weird fetishes. We did that story about the man who, what was his thing? About the dog fart? What was it? He was being punished. He did something to an animal, and his punishment was smelling dog anus. Like, damn it, Jason. Well, easily, this story can't be bad as that one. This story can't be nearly as bad as that one. They would take, like, a dog anal gland and, like, squeeze it underneath his nose, get it right up in there. Something like that, I don't remember. And I know I got more than one email from you guys going, Jason, that's dude's fetish. You read a guy's fetish out loud on your podcast. Well, possibly. But this one might not be a fetish. This one might actually be a crime. And I say this to you. A lot of people say, I've never heard of this, therefore it never existed. We don't know everything. We covered a story a long time ago about like some weird cult, I think it was in Scotland or Sweden or Scandinavia or something like that, that they have this holiday where they just dress up as like weirdos and they're walking around and people are scared. And outsiders have come to observe this holiday and they're always attacked. Like the people on the island, they don't talk about it at all. People have tried sneaking, outsiders have tried sneaking in with cameras and stuff like that. It never ends well. I'll put that episode in the show notes. I'll put the dog anus one in the show notes too. You know, just if you forgot about that one. But anyways, this story came up because a man posted online. We're going to call him Thomas. He didn't reveal his real name. He's 20 years old. He is an American citizen, but he had recently moved to an unnamed Eastern European city where he is a thief. It's not even that he steals for money. He just kind of steals for sport. And he thinks it's fun. You know, most thieves do. I'm not a huge fan of thieves. I actually can't stand a thief. But would I wish this upon them? I don't know. But he's a thief. He just steals stuff. It's not a big deal. He doesn't see it as a big deal. He doesn't even really see it as a crime so much because it's not like hurting anyone. It's not a moral issue. His girlfriend, on the other hand, tells him, Thomas, you don't understand. In this city, if you get caught committing minor crimes, it's not like you just get a couple days in jail and pay a fine, how it may work in the United States. You gotta be real careful, but he kind of blows her off. He's like, whatever, babe. No one can catch me, the cat burglar of this city. Well, he does get caught. And the first time the authorities go, listen, Thomas, we know you're from out of town. You don't know our ways, but we have a very particular way of dealing with small-time crooks. A fine in jail is just not going to change your behavior. We know that, so we have this tradition. We're going to muck you. He's like, what? And they go, we're going to muck you. And doesn't make it any clearer. He's like, well, what does that mean? And the cop goes, listen, you don't want to know. It's really disgusting. Just understand that it's super gross. Don't steal again. He finds out what mucking is. This punishment is where they take you to a pig farm and they tie you up. They tie you to like a beam inside the farm. You're sitting down. You can be comfortable. Crisscross applesauce. You want your legs sticking out all the way. Whatever floats your boat. But you're tied to this beam in this pig farm. And then at that point, the police officers take buckets of pig poop and pour it on you. And you go, well, that's not that bad of a crime. You're all getting visibly turned on. You're like, oh, I finally got a story on Dead Rabbit Radio just for me. My fetish being read out loud. Your cheeks are flushed. You get goosebumps. You're like, that doesn't sound terrible. In fact, what's the name of the city again? Oh, yeah, I've never been a thief, but maybe I'll pick it up as a hobby. You go, well, that's not that bad. You get a bucket of pig poop poured on you. But it's worse than you can imagine. First off, pig poop isn't like normal poop. It's very clumpy and runny. Apparently, right? I don't know that as a fact. People responded to this. People talked about this. His girlfriend actually said, Thomas, you don't understand. This is horrible. You don't want this to happen to you. Quit acting like it's not a big deal. You'll just take a shower later. Apparently, and I don't know this is fact, but pig poop has a unique consistency. How a human might have diarrhea. Feel free to shut off the episode. Go ahead. I'll see you tomorrow. You're standing in your hallway listening to a podcast. There's a little man at the end of it smelling like garbage. You're like, I really want to know how to defeat you, but not that bad. I'm just going to skip it. I'm going to unsubscribe to the podcast and just deal with this guy on my own. Humans can have diarrhea and can have solid poop, but apparently a pig does both at the same time. It's quite the feat of engineering. And you get a bucket of pig poop, so it's like clumpy and then runny at the same time. Imagine if you took 2 Snickers bars and threw them into some thick chocolate milk, let it sit out for a day or two, and then poured it on your head. But apparently it's gross. Obviously, I didn't know. It was like, oh, can someone describe it to me? Because it doesn't sound that gross. Pig poop would probably be the worst. And you go, Jason, okay, yeah, pig poop's disgusting. It's runny and it's chunky. But all they're doing is pouring it on your head. I mean, maybe you've stolen some minor stuff. You stole a wallet from a local store, and then you stole a couple apples from an apple cart. And because of that, they're going to pour pig poop on your head. That's not going to keep me from eating apples. Hopefully you'll take a shower before your next trip to the farm stand. But well, that's not the whole punishment, though. They just don't pour it on your head. What they do is they keep pouring it on you for hours. So your sentence will be a 2-hour or 4-hour or a 6-hour sentence. Well, they cover you in pig poop. So they'll pour it all over you, and then they wait a while and let it kind of cake on, and then they'll pour fresh poop on you. And wait till that kind of settles, and they'll pour more poop on you. And you go, Jason, that's still like, if you think about it, that's not that big of a deal. Well, here's the thing. That's what Thomas thinks too. He goes, this isn't a big deal. Like, first off, he goes, I've stolen a ton of stuff. It's so funny. When he first posted this, he didn't go into specifics of what the crime was. But then he finally goes, okay, it was theft. Just to get it over with, it's theft. He steals a bunch of stuff. He's only been caught once. He gets caught a second time, and the local authorities go, you have to stop. The next time you get caught, we will muck you. But he's still like, it's not that big of a deal. They'll never catch me again. He goes, I've stolen a ton of stuff. I've only been caught 2 times. The issue is his girlfriend's really freaking out about it. When he gets caught the second time, she is openly sobbing when he says, hey, they threatened me with the mucking thing again. She goes, Thomas, you don't understand. This will break you. This will psychologically damage you. It's not something funny. It's not something light. And he doesn't understand. Now, she might know people in town or know of someone in town, a friend of a friend, who had gotten mucked. So she would see the before and after, and she's really, really saying you gotta stop. She also has concerns because they live together. So it's not just a concern for his psyche, it's also a concern for, if this happens, I know you think you're going to come over and take a shower, but it's nothing that's going to be washed off in just a shower. And I don't want you over here showering with pig poop running off of you into the drain. He's like, it's not a big deal. He ends up getting caught a third time and he gets punished to be mucked. And Thomas is still very nonchalant about it. And people in town, I mean, they know this is coming. And it becomes an issue. He goes, you know what? I mean, like, listen, they're going to muck me for, I think his sentence was 4 hours. I'm not too worried about it. I can last, an hour or two, and then maybe the last 2 hours are pretty miserable. And one of his friends said, what are you talking about? You can't last more than 5 seconds. You have no idea what this is. Now, at this point, the person who posted this story online, their account got banned. So we don't know what happened with this dude. But apparently, and in an odd way, I think it might have even predated the original story. I'll double check that. If it's not true, I'll take it out. But someone else posted at a separate time a separate story about how they had gotten punished in an Eastern European city, and the punishment was mucking. Sometimes these stories are mixed together into one longer narrative, and the correct way is that they're 2 separate accounts. Some people think it's the same guy, just has a weird poop fetish, which, to be fair, might be true. But it's also possible. I mean, here's the thing. This would be efficient. What I'm about to describe to you would stop you from stealing right? It would stop you from doing a lot of different crimes. And it doesn't involve putting someone in jail for months or years, only for them to get out and continue to do it. This actually would get you to stop a lot of minor crimes. So let's take a look at the second part of it. This one does not involve pig poop, which is an interesting deal. If it was the same guy, I imagine he would get more of a boner for pig poop because he liked describing that. Why would he change it to cow poop? You ask. You're like, damn it. I thought it was just something else. Not poop. No, it's cow poop. And this guy says, I got caught doing these minor things. And on this weekend, me and a couple other people, we were brought out to this cow farm. And we'll call this guy Clancy. He's 20 years old. He said that we don't know what his crime was, but he was sentenced to a 6-hour mucking. And he didn't really know what to expect. There's a couple other people there as well. Some of them are there for only a 4-hour mucking. I think there were 6 people altogether. And the police bring him out to this cow farm, and he goes, here's the thing. The second you walk in, this smell of livestock and cow and poop is overwhelming. Like, he haven't even started it yet. They went in the front door. He's like, I give up. I'll never steal again. He goes, it was real just hot and stanky in there. And these convicts were told to sit down on the ground. They were handcuffed to a beam with their hands behind their backs. They had to take off their shirt, their socks, and their shoes. They could keep their pants on. They're like, yeah, that's a new rule. Last time we did this to a guy with pig poop, huge boner. We didn't know it was his fetish. He liked it a lot. He actually stole more stuff on the way back to the police station. And they gave you goggles, which makes sense, right? You don't want cow parasites crawling in through your cornea. They don't give you a mouth covering, though. They don't give you a clothespin for your nose. And he goes, we were about 5 feet apart. We were 5 meters apart. I was 5 meters away from the nearest convict on either side of me. And, the place already stinks. It hasn't started yet. But once Clancy saw the wheelbarrow come in, that's when it really starts to hit him. He's all, wheelbarrow? What? I thought it was a bucket. I thought maybe there'd be a little break as you're waiting for the next cow to poop. No. This was pre-planned. And they have a wheelbarrow full of poop. And also let me add this detail. He goes, we had our hands cuffed behind our backs to this beam. It was like basically to a knot in the wall. But we also had a restraint placed around our midsection, so we couldn't move. He goes, we could just kind of move our head. And they begin scooping out bucketfuls of cow poop, some of it fresh, most of it fresh, some of it dried, right? It sounded disappointed when I said that. I was like, I only like the fresh stuff. I only like the fresh stuff, officer. They begin scooping out cow poop and pouring it on Clancy. And he realized immediately this was not going to be an easy 6 hours. They put one scoop on his legs, one scoop on his chest, and buckets, not like a little hand scooper. A bucket full on his legs, a bucket full on his chest, and then a bucket full over his head. And he described it like this. Quote, I'd never smelled anything like this before. And it was all greenish brown. Like, Jason, we get it. It's cow poop. It's being poured on a guy. You don't need to read the quote. We understand. Let me give you a little more detail. Quote, I never smelled anything like this before, and it was all greenish brown. And I couldn't even tell if it was solid or a liquid. It was also very hot and thick and runny. The next couple shovelfuls went over my head and into my face. I couldn't see because they splattered the goggles. He said that people also warned him about this. He goes, but no one prepared him for just exactly what it smelled like. He goes, I guess I thought it was going to smell like dog farts. That was really the only animal that he had been around that was defecating a lot. He goes, it's 1,000 times worse than that. You can't even compare it to, like, chicken poop or a dirty litter box. He said it was the worst smelling. He said it smelled like rotten farts. Like if a corpse farted. He goes, here's the thing. You can't breathe. Because every time you breathed, you would just get this hot smell up into your nostrils. Which is the worst smell in the world. And it was on you. You couldn't see anything. He said, I could hear the other convicts retching and gagging. I could hear the bucketful splattering across their body. And it's like 5 minutes into this 6-hour-long sentence. And he said it basically worked like this. You would sit there with this cow poop on you. It would start to harden. Bugs would show up. Bugs, flies, all sorts of flying, mostly flies, right? What else eat poop? What else eats poop? But he goes, the bugs would come, and now you're like all itchy and stuff. I mean, you got bigger things to worry about. You're like, get this fly off my nose as pig poop's rolling into your mouth. He goes, it would cake on you. Bugs would show up. Bugs everywhere. And then one of the cops would come up to you and said, hey, do you need a drink of water? And of course you would say yes. Who's going to say no? It's cat pee. They're like, I got you again, thief. No, they go, hey, do you need some water? And you go, yeah. So they basically bring you some water. And then you get a couple big gulps in. They don't want you to die. They give you that water, you take a couple gulps, and then they shovel more poop on you. A fresh, wet layer. He's sitting there and he goes, what? It starts to get really bad. Like, if things couldn't get worse, he goes, you end up throwing up. The smell's so bad and you can't do anything to get it off of you that you throw up. And now you're smelling the throat. Like, Jason, you could just not do this story at all. You could just go, I'm not going to cover this one today. This is disgusting. Yes, but maybe it'll keep you from stealing. Maybe someone in Eastern Europe needs to hear this episode. He goes, it would get worse because you would throw up. So now you smell throw up and cow poop. But eventually, I mean, I would just get desensitized to the smell of my own vomit. I'd be sitting there being like, I hope I vomit again. At least that will add a different texture to the smell. He goes, you end up throwing up. He goes, everyone's throwing up. It's horrible. More cow poops getting put on us. It just lasted forever. He goes, I'm sitting there, and it's like hour 5. It's almost over. And at that point, he hears 2 more people being brought in to the cow farm, the cow building, whatever, there's a specific name for it, cow farm. So he had a 6-hour sentence. Everyone who was tied up now had a 6-hour sentence. There were 2 people who were brought out who only had 4-hour sentences. And he hears them being led into the barn. That was the word I was looking for. And he hears a woman who he had met on the jail transport vehicle out there. This woman sees what's going on. He can't see anything. None of them can. And she starts begging, oh my God, that's horrible. Please don't do it to me. Please don't do it. I'll never do it again. And she's basically pleading because she gets to see what her fate is going to be in a couple minutes as they're handcuffing her to the wall, to the beam. And at that point, Clancy goes, wait. I was sentenced to 6 hours. She was sentenced to 4 hours. Oh my God, only 2 hours have passed? I thought I was almost done. I thought this was the end. No. He thought that he was at the end. In fact, only 2 hours had passed. He had 2/3 of his time left to do. And they ask him if he wants a drink of water and then shovels more poop on top of him. Well, eventually he does his 6 hours. And he goes, I go to my mom's house and I take a shower. And then another shower and another shower. The smell won't leave. He said even days later, he was still smelling the smell of cow poop. Couldn't get it out. I mean, at that point, because it's psychological damage, there's nothing left on him, but the memory remains. He said, I can't even sleep well anymore. Like, I can't even get a good night's sleep. Sometimes I'm sleeping and then I just have to get up and take a shower, just one more round to get this smell out. And he does say, he goes, listen, I never want that to happen again. I'm an impulsive person. I'm afraid I might do something that might land me in the trajectory of a mucking, but I hope that doesn't happen. I really, really hope I'm able to curb my impulsive desires to commit whatever crime this guy was doing, because it was two separate people. He goes, but I can only hope, right? You imagine you're constantly doing things to buck the system. We know that you go into jail, it doesn't always make it that you come out and I'm never going to commit that crime again. There's that part of human nature. There's that part inside of us that sometimes bends towards the wrong. But he's not really worried about jail. He's worried about mucking. And he says, from now on, whenever I'm tempted to do something wrong, something against the law, I really hope I'm able to hold on to the memory. Because if not, I know that's exactly what they're going to do to me again. So that's the story of the men who have been mucked. Is there any truth to it? It's possible. Listen, I could see it being an old-timey punishment that was so effective, they'd still use it. The argument that people have against these stories is they go, it's just fetish content. I've never heard of such a thing. And if you type in the word mucking, the only thing that pops up are these two stories. Therefore, it doesn't happen. I think that is not true. I do. Here's the thing: are these two examples true? Possibly. Is there such a bizarre punishment out there that people don't know about who don't live in the area? Absolutely, 100%. People assume because the internet that they have access to all the knowledge, therefore everything can be found out or proven right away, and that's just not the case. That's just not the case. It's possible. I could totally see this being an old-timey punishment that's carried over. I think it would work. I do think that this, which basically kind of amounts to a psychological torture, it would work. And at the end of the day, listen, we do have a problem in our society with crime and how to deal with it. Maybe we should do stuff like this. Jason, you're constantly talking about crimes you quote-unquote didn't commit in your 20s and 30s. You're constantly saying you've done all this crazy stuff. Wouldn't you be in line for a mucking? Because obviously you've never committed any crime that will lead to prison time, but, maybe a night in county jail. Possible, right? I've never committed any crimes. I've never broken the law once. Ever. But if I had broken the law multiple times in my 20s and 30s, yeah, they would be the type of laws that were broken, hypothetically, that would result in a mucking. If the threat of mucking was held over me, because I don't like bad smells. Now, I'm not saying a junkie's not going to slash an old lady across the face because she didn't give her purse up quick enough. That guy's just looking to get high. I'm not saying that when he's desperate, he's going, oh man, I really need to get high. I'm shaking, I'm into withdrawal. But maybe I should go get a job application at Wendy's instead of slashing an old lady because I don't want to get covered in poop. I think it would be a deterrent. I think it would be a deterrent except for people who got off on excrement. That would be a big problem because I think you would have people in society who just love poop. Maybe they would commit crimes more, right? They're like, I'm just sitting there, they're like, oh, how do I get my poop fetish? I read all the mucking stories online, all 2 of them. Now I need more. So maybe they do start stealing and they're like, oh, officer. They're like holding up a stolen book. They're at a library. They're like, you can just get a card. He's like, nope, it's stolen. I guess you gotta muck me. The officer's like, fine. And then you get arrested. And the officer's like, do you know what you're facing? And he goes, I sure do, officer. I brought my own goggles. I'm ready to go. I was like, we're not doing it today. You might have people who have a fetish for it, purposely wanting to get in trouble. I wondered what happens if someone has a fetish for, because I'm sure someone does. I'm sure there are people out there who have a fetish for the SWAT team kicking in their door. Like, has a fetish for getting arrested and being dragged downtown and yelled at and interrogated. Like, I bet you there are people who have a fetish for that. They actually get off on having their house raided and being thrown to the ground by a heavily armed law enforcement officer. There has to be. Statistically, there's a fetish for everything. So I wonder how many people out there like that. They get boners when their door gets kicked in by the police. So those people, I think, would actually commit crimes to have that happen. Major crimes. Because just the cops coming to your door is not doing it. You got to have your door kicked in. That's their fetish. So, I mean, maybe, Jason, you're right. You're right. Statistically, that is a fetish. But, like, how would you even find that out? You just go to the police station, you're walking around, and everyone who's been arrested tonight, one guy has a big smile on his face. You're like, hey, does this get you off? Does this get you off? And he's like, what are you talking about? And you're like, well, obviously you're happy to be here. I wonder if you could figure out how many people you'd like to get their house raided. You're like, 2, okay? There's probably 2 people on the entire planet who have that fetish. I don't know. There's a fetish for everything. There's a fetish. Someone does like stories about poop being poured on them. Dog anal glands sprayed up in their nose. I'm sure there are people who have a fetish for being raided by the police, which is such a dangerous fetish, too. I mean, so is eating poop. I mean, I'm not saying that's the most hygienic and healthy one either. But imagine if you did have a fetish for cops kicking in your door, you would commit crimes that would cause that to happen. And everyone around you would be like, whoa, I never suspected that guy was such a hardened criminal. But it turns out the only part of you that was really hardened was in your pants. Wait, what? You're talking about mucking, and then you made up another fetish. Did you just go, statistically, someone has this, and then you start talking about that? I quit. I'm not listening to Dead Rabbit Radio anymore. You know you are. You know, because if you thought this story was gross, next week, for Christmas, I got one of the grossest stories I think I could possibly ever find. So stay tuned. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. TikTok is @DeadRabbitRadio. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one.